eyes now and let yourself drift into a peaceful world. A world where time moves slowly, where the grass grows quietly, and where even the smallest creatures have gentle stories to tell. Take a deep breath in and slowly let it out. Let us journey together to a quiet green forest where the air is soft, the light is gentle, and everything moves at nature's own peaceful rhythm. In this quiet green forest, far away from the noise of the busy world, there stood an ancient oak tree. This tree was very, very old. Its roots spread deep into a cool, dark earth, reaching down, down, and down, searching for water and minerals in the soil below. The roots twisted and turned, creating small spaces, tiny tunnels, comfortable hollows in the ground. The bark of the tree was rough and grey, with deep grooves running up and down its trunk. If you were to place your hand upon it, you would feel the texture, rough yet somehow comforting. Moss grew in patches on the north side of the tree, soft green moss that held tiny droplets of morning dew. The branches of this old oak spread wide, reaching out in all directions, creating a canopy of leaves above. During the day, sunlight would filter through these leaves, creating dancing patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor or below. Golden light, soft shadows, moving gently with the breeze. And beneath this tree, hidden from the casual observer, there was a colony of ants. Not just any colony, but a large, organized community of tiny creatures, each one going about their daily tasks with purpose and determination. The entrance to the colony was a small opening in the earth, barely noticeable unless you were looking carefully. Around this entrance, the ground was smooth, worn down by thousands and thousands of tiny ant feet walking the same path, day after day, week after week, season after season. Inside the colony, tunnels branched off in every direction. Some tunnels led to food storage chambers, where seeds and crumbs were carefully organized and preserved. Other tunnels led to nursery chambers, where the youngest ants were tended by careful nurses. Still other tunnels led deeper and deeper into the earth, to chambers used during the cold winter months. Everything in the colony happened slowly, methodically, peacefully. Ants walked in lines, following scent trails left by others before them. They communicated through gentle touches of their antennae, soft taps that passed information from one end to another. The colony hummed with quiet activity, a gentle rhythm of life, continuing as it had for many, many years. Breathe slowly, in and out, as we continue our gentle story. Among all these ants, there lived one particular ant named Messi was smaller than the other ants. Not just a little smaller, but noticeably, significantly smaller. Where the other ants stood proud and strong, Messi seemed delicate, almost fragile. Every morning, Messi would wake up in his small sleeping chamber. He would stretch his 6 legs, one by one. First the front legs, then the middle legs, then the back legs. He would clean his antennae carefully, running them through his mandibles to remove any dust or debris from the previous day. Then Messi would make his way slowly through the tunnels to begin his daily work. The tunnels were smooth underfoot, packed earth that had been walked on by countless generations of ants. As Messi walked, he would feel the tunnel walls on either side, using his antennae to sense his way in the darkness. When Messi emerged into the daylight at the colony entrance, he would pause. He always paused here, taking a moment to observe the world around him. The morning light was soft, gentle. The air was cool and fresh. Sometimes there were dewdrops on grass blades nearby, and Messi would watch how they caught the light, sparkling like tiny diamonds. But soon enough, the other ants would hurry past him. "Move along, Messi," they would say, not unkindly, but not particularly warmly either. There is work to be done, and there was always work to be done. The colony needed food constantly, leaves to cut, seeds to gather, crumbs to collect and carry home. The worker ants would set out each day in long lines, following scent trails to sources of food they had discovered. Messi would try to help. He would approach a seed that needed carrying, but the seed would be too large for him. He would struggle, pushing and pulling, trying with all his might to move it even a little bit. His legs would strain, his muscles would tire, but the seed would barely budge. Other ants would pass by, and they would pick up seeds twice as large with ease. They would carry their loads back to a colony, walking steadily, confidently. Meanwhile, Messi would still be struggling with a smaller seed, making slow progress. "Perhaps you should carry the smaller crumbs, Messi," the other ants would suggest. "Leave the real work to those who are strong enough." Messi would nod quietly and move to the smaller food items. He would pick up tiny crumbs, pieces so small that other ants didn't even notice them, and he would carry these crumbs back to the colony, one by one, trip after trip, all day long. The journey from the food source to the colony entrance took time. Messi would walk slowly, carefully, making sure not to drop his tiny burden. He would follow the scent trail, putting one foot in front of the other, step after step after step. Along the way, he would notice things. He would notice how the grass grew at different angles, creating shaded areas and sunny spots. He would notice which paths stayed dry even after a light rain, and which paths collected water. He would notice how the wind moved through the forest, how it blew from different directions at different times of day, while the other ants rushed about their work, focused only on carrying as much food as possible. Messi walked slowly and observed everything. He watched how leaves fell from the trees, spiraling gently down to the forest floor. He watched how raindrops created tiny rivers in the soil, flowing downhill, finding the lowest paths. He watched how some plants seemed to stay green and healthy, while others wilted, and he wondered why. In the evenings, when the work was done and the sun was setting, Messi would sit at the colony entrance and watch the sky change colors. First, the blue of day would deepen, then orange would appear near the horizon, then pink, then purple, then the deep blue-black of night. Stars would emerge one by one, tiny points of light in the vast darkness above. The other ants didn't understand why Messi spent time doing this. "Come inside, Messi," they would say. "There is no purpose in watching the sky. Tomorrow we must work again." But Messi felt there was purpose in it, so he couldn't quite explain what that purpose was. He felt that by watching, by noticing, by paying attention to the world around him, he was learning something important. He just didn't know yet what that something was. And so the days passed, one after another, in a peaceful rhythm. Wake up, stretch, clean antennae, walk through tunnels, emerge into daylight, carry small crumbs, observe the world, watch the sunset, sleep, and then begin again. The seasons changed slowly. Summer gave way to autumn, and the forest transformed. The green leaves turned yellow, orange, red. They fell from the trees in greater numbers, creating a soft carpet on the forest floor. The air grew cooler. The ants worked harder, gathering food for the winter ahead. Messi continued his quiet work, carrying his small crumbs, watching, learning, thinking. Breathe deeply now. Feel yourself relaxing more and more as our story continues softly. One afternoon, late in autumn, Messi emerged from the colony entrance as usual. But something felt different. The air was heavy, thick with moisture. The light had a strange quality to it, yellowish and dim. Messi looked up at the sky. Dark clouds were gathering, rolling in from the west. They moved slowly across the sky, blocking out the sun. These weren't the light, fluffy clouds that sometimes drifted overhead. These were heavy, dark, threatening clouds, piled high like mountains in the sky. The other ants noticed too. There was a change in the colony's activity. The workers moved faster, hurrying to bring food inside before the rain came. The older ants, those who had lived through many seasons, called out warnings. "A storm is coming," they said. "A big one. Everyone inside. Secure the food. Check the tunnels." Bessie stood at the entrance, watching the sky darken more and more. The wind began to pick up, rustling through the leaves that still clung to the trees. Those leaves that had already fallen began to skitter across the ground, pushed by the increasingly strong gust. In the distance, Messi heard a low rumble. Thunder. It was far away still, but it was coming closer. He could feel it somehow. A deep vibration in the air, in the ground beneath his feet. The first raindrops began to fall. Large, heavy drops that hit the ground with surprising force. One landed near Messi, creating a tiny crater in the dust. Another landed on a leaf nearby, making a soft drumming sound. Then more drops fell, and more, until the rain was falling steadily, creating a curtain of water between earth and sky. "Bessie, inside," called the other ants. "Quickly." Bessie retreated into the colony entrance. He stood just inside, watching the rain fall outside. It fell harder and harder until individual drops could no longer be distinguished. It was just a wall of water pouring from the sky, driven by the wind. The thunder grew louder. It rumbled and crashed, echoing through the forest. Lightning flashed, brilliant white light that illuminated everything for a brief instant before plunging back into darkness. Flash, rumble, crash. The storm was directly overhead now. Inside the colony, the ants gathered in the main chambers. They waited, listening to the storm rage above them. Usually they felt safe underground, protected by layers of earth from whatever happened on the surface. But this storm was different. This storm was powerful. Water began to seep into the colony. At first, it was just a little moisture on the tunnel walls, making the earth soft and muddy. But then water began to drip from the ceiling. Drops fell steadily, creating small puddles on the tunnel floors. The puddles grew larger. They merged together, creating streams of water flowing down the sloped tunnels. The water searched for the lowest points, running downhill, gathering force as it went. The storage chambers. Someone cried out. The food will be ruined. Ants rushed to the storage chambers, trying to move food to higher ground. But there was so much food, and the water was coming in so fast. They worked frantically, carrying seeds and crumbs to upper tunnels, but for every piece they saved, more were being swept away by the flowing water. The tunnel walls began to collapse. The water had made the earth soft, and it could no longer support its own weight. Sections of tunnel fell in with soft whooshing sounds, blocking passages, cutting off routes through the colony. Panic spread among the ants. They ran in different directions, bumping into each other, confused and frightened. The organized, peaceful colony had become chaotic. Everyone to the upper chambers. The leader ant commanded, abandon the lower levels. The ants began to retreat upward, climbing toward the colony entrance and the chambers near the surface. But the water followed them. It kept coming, flowing down from the entrance, where the rain was pouring in, but also welling up from below, where it had saturated the earth. The colony was flooding. The home they had built so carefully, the tunnels they had dug with such effort, the chambers they had maintained for generations, all of it was being destroyed by the relentless water. Some of the bigger, stronger ants tried to dig new drainage channels to direct the water away, but the wet earth was too soft, collapsing as fast as they could dig. Others tried to block the entrance with leaves and debris, but the water was too powerful, washing away their barriers. Nothing was working. The colony was going to be destroyed, and there seemed to be nothing anyone could do about it. Let your body sink deeper into relaxation now, being peaceful and calm as we continue. In the midst of all this chaos and panic, while the other ants ran about frantically, Messi stood very still. He had moved to the side of one of the upper chambers, away from the rushing crowds, and there he stood, simply observing. He watched how the water moved. It flowed downhill, always seeking the lowest point. It moved along the paths of least resistance. Where the tunnel sloped down, water rushed quickly. Where the tunnels leveled out, water pooled and collected. He noticed that some areas of the colony were wetter than others. The chambers on the eastern side seemed to have more water flowing through them. The western chambers were slightly drier, though still wet. Messi thought about what he had observed over many months of watching the forest. He thought about how rain created streams on the surface, how water always flowed in certain patterns. He thought about the lay of the land around the old oak tree. The tree stood on a a very slight hill. The ground sloped gently downward to the east. That's why more water was flowing into the eastern chambers. Gravity was pulling it that way. The western side, though still underground, was slightly higher in elevation. Bessie began to move through the colony, carefully making his way through the panic and confusion. He used his antennae to sense the moisture levels in different tunnels. Some tunnels were completely flooded. Others had water flowing through them. But some tunnels were just damp, not flooded. He explored methodically, patiently, ignoring the chaos around him. He moved deeper into a western section of the colony, into areas that were less frequently used. And there, near a large underground rock that the colony had been built around, Messi found something interesting. There was a small pocket of space where the ground was merely damp, not flooded. The rock above provided some protection, and the slight elevation meant water wasn't pooling here. Messi examined this area carefully. He checked the stability of the earth. He tested the ceiling of this small space. He looked at how the rock formed a natural barrier against water flowing from above. And he realized something important. This spot could be expanded. A new chamber could be dug here, and it would stay relatively dry even in this terrible storm. Moreover, from this spot, drainage tunnels could be dug that would follow the natural slope of the land, channeling water away from the colony rather than letting it pool inside. But Messi was small. He couldn't dig this himself, not quickly enough to make a difference. He would need help. He would need the other ants to listen to him, to follow his plan. Messi felt a flutter of doubt. Why would the bigger, stronger ants listen to him? They never had before. They had always dismissed his ideas, ignored his suggestions. He was just small Messi, the weakest ant in the colony, barely able to carry a crumb. But then Messi looked around at the flooding colony. He saw the fear in the other ants. He saw the failed attempts to stop the water. He saw that the usual strength and confidence weren't helping them now. What they needed wasn't strength, it was understanding. Understanding of how water moved, how the land was shaped, how to work with nature rather than against it. And Messi, small as he was, had that understanding. He had gained it through his months of quiet observation, to his slow walks, where he noticed everything, through his evenings spent watching the rain and the wind and the patterns of nature. This was his moment. This was what all that watching and learning had been preparing him for as he made his way back chambers, watching helplessly as water continued to seep in from multiple directions. The leader ant was there, trying to maintain order, but even he looked worried and uncertain. "Please," Bessie said softly, "I think I have found a solution." Some of the ants turned to look at him. Others were too preoccupied with their own fear to notice. "Not now, Messie," one of the bigger ants said dismissively. "Can't you see we have a crisis?" "Yes," Messie replied quietly. "That's exactly why you need to listen. I found a dry area near the large rock. We can build a new chamber there and dig proper drainage tunnels. But I need help. I need everyone to work together." The leader ant looked at Messie with tired eyes. "We've tried digging a small one. The earth is too wet. It collapses." "Not in the place I found," Messie said patiently. "The rock protects it. The earth is damp but still firm. And if we dig following the natural slope of the land, the water will drain away instead of pooling. I've watched how water moves. I know this can work." There was a moment of silence. The other ants looked at each other uncertainly. "Trust Messie," the smallest, weakest among them. But then one of the younger ants spoke up. "I'll help him. What do we have to lose?" Another ant nodded. "I'll come too." And then another and another. Not all of them, but enough. A small group of ants willing to try Messie's plan. "Show us," the leader ant said quietly. "Show us this place you found." Take another slow, deep breath, feeling more relaxed with each moment as our gentle story continues. Messie led the group of ants through the tunnels, moving carefully to avoid the areas with the most water. They made their way to the western section, deeper into the colony, until they reached the large underground rock. "Here," Messie said, pointing with his antennae to the small dry pocket he had discovered. "This is where we start." The other ants examined the area. They tested the soil, checked the ceiling, observed the water flow around the rock. Slowly, they began to nod. "He's right," one of them said. "This spot is more stable. The rock is protecting it from the water above," another observed, "and the ground here does seem slightly higher," a third added. The leader ant stepped forward. "Very well, Messie. Tell us what to do." Messie felt a surge of nervous energy, but he kept his voice calm and steady. "First, we expand this dry pocket into a proper chamber, a refuge where everyone can gather safely. Then, from here, we dig 3 drainage tunnels, following the slope of the land. The tunnels will exit on the downhill side of a tree, away from the colony entrance. The water we flow out through these tunnels instead of flooding our home. The ants began to work. They started carefully excavating the dry pocket, removing earth bit by bit, expanding the safe space. Bessie supervised, making sure they didn't dig too far in any direction that would compromise the natural protection the rock provided. As they dug, more ants arrived, attracted by the organized activity. They saw their fellow ants working together with purpose, and they wanted to help. "What's happening here?" they asked. Bessie found a solution. The workers replied, "Join us." The group grew larger. More ants meant faster progress. The chamber expanded steadily. It wasn't large yet, but it was taking shape. And it remained dry even as the storm continued to rage outside. Next came the drainage tunnels. This was more delicate work. Bessie used his understanding of the land slope to direct the digging. "This angle," he would say, pointing with his antennae. "We need to maintain this downward angle." The ants dug carefully, following Bessie's directions. They removed earth and carried it away, grain by grain, bit by bit. The tunnel slowly extended forward, sloping gently downward, heading toward the outer edge of the colony's territory. It was slow work, painstaking work. Each ant could only carry a tiny amount of earth at a time. They formed long lines, passing dirt from digger to carrier to depositor in a chain of cooperation. Hours passed. The storm outside continued, but inside the colony, the work proceeded with quiet determination. No one complained about being tired. No one argued about the plan. They simply worked together, trusting in Bessie's guidance. Bessie walked among them, checking the angles of the tunnels, ensuring the earth remained stable, offering encouragement and direction. "A little to the left here. Yes, that's perfect. Keep the slope consistent. Good work, everyone." The smallest ant, who had once struggled to carry even a tiny crumb, was now leading the entire colony in their greatest undertaking. And he did it not with strength or loudness, but with calm knowledge and patient guidance. The first drainage tunnel broke through to the surface on the downhill side of the tree. Immediately, water began to flow into it, pulled by gravity toward the new exit. The water that had been pooling in the colony found a new path, and it rushed towards this outlet, draining away into the forest beyond. The ants cheered softly. It was working. They dug faster now, encouraged by their success. The second drainage tunnel was completed, and then the third. More and more water flowed out of the colony through these new channels. flooding began to recede. Water levels dropped in the tunnels. Chambers that had been completely submerged began to empty. The colony was being saved. As they worked, Bessie thought about all the time he had spent observing the world. All those slow walks where he had noticed how water flowed. All those evenings watching the rain create patterns in the soil. All that patient attention to details that others had ignored. It had all mattered. It had all led to this moment. The work continued through the night. Even as they grew tired, the ants kept digging, kept carrying, kept building. They had found new hope, and they weren't going to stop until the job was complete. By dawn, the storm had passed. The rain stopped, and the clouds began to break apart, allowing sunlight to filter through. And inside the colony, the water was nearly all drained away. The chambers were still damp, and there was repair work to be done, but the immediate danger had passed. The colony was safe. The ants gathered in the new chamber that Messi had found. The chamber had served as their refuge and the starting point for their drainage system. They were exhausted but happy. They had survived the great storm, and they had done it by working together, following the guidance of the smallest among them. Feel your eyelids growing heavy, your breathing slow and steady as we near the end of our peaceful story. The morning after the storm was beautiful. The forest seemed washed clean, fresh and new. Water droplets clung to every leaf and blade of grass, sparkling in the early sunlight like thousands of tiny jewels. The air smelled of earth and rain and growing things. Messi stood at the colony entrance, looking out at this transformed world. Other ants emerged beside him, also taking in the peaceful scene. The ground was muddy in places, and there were small puddles here and there, but the violence of the storm had passed, leaving only calm and renewal. The leader ant approached Messi. He stood beside the small ant in silence for a moment, both of them watching the forest awaken to a new day. "You saved us," the leader finally said quietly. "When our strength failed, your wisdom succeeded. When our usual ways didn't work, your different way did." Messi shook his head gently. "It wasn't just me. Everyone worked together. Without all those ants helping, my plan would have accomplished nothing." "True," the leader agreed. "But without your plan, all our hard work would have had no direction. Leadership is knowing what to do when others are lost, and you knew." The other ants began to gather around Messi, not crowding him, not overwhelming harming him, but simply being near, showing respect and gratitude. From now on, the leader announced, when Messi speaks, we listen. His ideas are valuable. His observations matter. He has proven that strength comes in many forms. The ants touched their antennae to Messi's, one by one, in a gesture of acknowledgement and thanks. Messi felt a warmth spraying through him. Not pride exactly, but quiet satisfaction. He had found his purpose. He had discovered that his different way of being, his careful observation, his patient thinking, wasn't a weakness. It was a different kind of strength. In the days that followed, the colony recovered. They repaired the damaged tunnels, dried out the red chambers, and reorganized their food stores. The drainage system that Messi had designed continued to work perfectly, channeling any water away from the living areas. But more than the physical structure changed, the culture of the colony changed too. The bigger ants no longer dismissed those who were different. They learned to value different kinds of contributions. Strength had its place, yes, but so did wisdom. Speed had its place, but so did careful observation. Confidence had its place, but so did patient thought. Messi went back to his daily routines, but they were different now. He still carried small crumbs. He was still a small ant, after all. But now, when he walked slowly, observing the world around him, other ants walked with him, young ants who wanted to learn what he saw, how he noticed things, how he understood the patterns of nature. Why does the water flow this way? They would ask. Watch, Messi would reply. Notice the slope of the land. See how the water follows gravity, always seeking the lowest path. And the young ants would watch and notice and learn. In the evenings, Messi still sat at the colony entrance, watching the sky change colors as the sun set. But now he wasn't alone. Other ants joined him, sitting quietly, observing the beauty of the world, understanding that there was value in paying attention, in being still, in noticing the small wonders that each day brought. The seasons changed again. Autumn gave way to winter, winter to spring, spring to summer. The colony thrived, and at the heart of the thriving community was a lesson that everyone had learned. That each individual has value. That different doesn't mean lesser. That the smallest voice sometimes speaks the wisest words. Messi never became arrogant or boastful. He remained the quiet, observant ant he had always been. But now he understood his own worth. He knew that he belonged, that he mattered, that he had an important role to play. And on warm summer evenings, when the work was done, and the colony was safe and peaceful, as he would still sit at the entrance and watch the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky, and he would think about storms and solutions, about observation and understanding, about being small but thinking big. The forest hummed with life all around him. Crickets chirped their evening songs. A gentle breeze rustled through the leaves. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called softly, and in the ant colony beneath the old oak tree, all was peaceful and well. The tiny ant with the patient heart had become the greatest teacher the colony had ever known, not through force or loudness, but through quiet wisdom and steady courage. And they all lived and worked and thrived together in harmony with each other and with the world around them. Now, as our story comes to a gentle close, let yourself drift deeper into peaceful sleep. Remember the quiet forest, the patient little ant, the sound of rain, the calm after the storm. Let all the tensions of your day flow away like water draining from those tunnels. Feel yourself safe and comfortable, like an ant in a dry, protected chamber. Your breathing is slow and steady, in and out, in and out. The story is complete, and now there is only peace, only rest, only the gentle drift into deep, restorative sleep. Good night. Sleep well, and may your dreams be as peaceful as the forest after rain.